with Mr. Raymond Dunton from Navajo Ministries in Farmington. Thank you, Mr. Dunton, for coming again. If we would all please stand.
Creator God, we thank you for another opportunity we have to enjoy and express one of the many freedoms we have in this country. Father, I thank you for each of these public servants that have a heart's desire to serve well. Therefore, I ask that you would give them the wisdom, the understanding, the insightfulness. Father, that you would grant them clarity of thought and understanding in order for them to make the decisions they need to make in order to be the servants they've been asked to be. And we ask now that not only that they would have the guidance and the direction that is necessary in order to make a difference in the community. And we ask all this would be done in the unity of the Spirit and the bond of peace. And we ask this in your Son. Amen.
Amen. Okay.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and the Z symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. Still have to look.
We're getting better at that.
Almost got it.
Okay. Sherilyn, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Snover?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Fry?
Here.
Commissioner Sykes?
Here.
Commissioner Randall?
Here.
Commissioner Lewis?
Here.
All are present?
Okay. Thanks. Next item is agenda approval. If there are any items that need to be removed from the agenda from tonight's meeting, now is the time to do so.
Mr. Ray, do we want to pull the proclamation?
I guess, I mean, I could probably just speak to it briefly, but we don't have the actual proclamation, so is that necessary?
If you can do it without the proclamation, the
Okay.
actual paper is not necessary.
Okay. All right. Okay. So with that said, are there any items, anybody need to feel like there's an item that needs to be pulled from tonight's agenda? Okay. I will then entertain a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
I move to approve tonight's agenda as given.
Have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. The next thing is our proclamation. And unfortunately, in the throes of city government, sometimes things get misplaced or not put where they're supposed to. So I'm going to just make a brief statement, and we will maybe, city manager, maybe look at doing it at the official proclamation. So apologies from myself on behalf of the commission, but June, we're going to do a proclamation for Gay Pride Month in June. And I don't have an official statement or proclamation to make, but I just basically want to, I think it's important, especially in 2018, to recognize everybody from all walks of life, you know, every chance and every opportunity we get. And, you know, Pride Month is a huge part of our culture moving forward, and I think it's important to shine a light on some of the major strides that we've made as a society over the last several years for LGBTQ rights. And I don't know, I'm losing words here, but I just think it's important to recognize these and take the opportunity to recognize, you know, everybody, every opportunity we get. So with that said, I want to apologize one more time for missing the proclamation, and we will have it at the next commission meeting. So thank you for your understanding. Moving right along, we have a presentation from Guzman Energy, purchase power update from Guzman.
Great. All right. Well, my name is Damien Arizari. A couple of you I do know. I wanted to come down here because we know that there's been some new commissioners that have come on to the commission. We want to come say hello, welcome. Steve, I heard you've been doing a great job down here.
Rumors fly.
That's right. And so I want to just kind of come down. We like to come maybe once or twice a year. I know Ken would like me to come more. We definitely try to, and give an update of just what we're doing for the community, what we kind of have on the horizon, and wanted to introduce the folks who haven't been on the commission to who we are. So Guzman Energy, we're a wholesale power provider, and to that end, we are similar to a P&M, but in a bit different in that we utilize many different generation resources around the country to bring you the lowest cost generation mix. And there's lots of different benefits that does. It really does allow us to bring you the lowest cost generation mix that works for your community, whether it be you want more renewables online, or maybe you want just the cheapest power available. And what we've been able to do with the city of Aztec is really come in and become a partner in your energy procurement instead of just a wholesale provider that you send your bills to. So this right here is a graphic of kind of where we buy our generation from. Now, I said we're kind of like a P&M, but the big difference is we don't own the actual assets. We just own the power that comes off them. So right now we are very close to closing on some wind in eastern New Mexico that we'll be putting into our generation portfolio and using to serve our loads, which I'll talk about here in a little bit. We do utilize some San Juan generation. We do utilize solar generation from New Mexico. And we put this all into a basket to really develop a good, cheap, reliable generation mix for you guys. So I showed this slide last time I was here, and I wanted to just bring it again for those of you who hadn't seen it. Previously, with P&M on the left there, that was your resource mix. Their wind had actually been a little less. That's today's P&M generation mix, so that would have been today. Over on the right, that's your generation mix under Guzman Energy. You'll see that that blue is a little bit larger with Guzman Energy because we allowed the city to take what's called Western replacement power, additional hydropower from WAPA, which P&M hadn't let you guys take previously. That kind of speaks to the flexibility that we've brought. Now, this is where we hope to be, probably next year when we do close on this wind. And as you can see, your generation mix is going to be, pretty robust and very diverse, right? There is always going to be fossil fuel for now, because that is what we serve that reliable base load for. But we're planning on bringing in a whole lot of wind, hydro, and the solar you can see bumped up because we do allow in our purchase power agreement for the city to own and operate additional solar if you want. We'll talk a little bit about how that solar has been a great deal for you. So the solar that you guys put in with us with us helping has kind of, these are the stats to date that it has produced. So you see there that the trees, I like that graphic because that is actually how many trees you would have to plant to offset the carbon that you have offset using that solar. So that's kind of what that's about. It's a little bit confusing, but the software we get gives us that stat. And so as you can see, you generated quite a bit of solar since this thing's come on. And it's done two things. It's made your portfolio a little bit greener, and it saved you guys quite a bit of money by reducing your generation load. And so for those of you who didn't maybe hear about or weren't as paying attention as closely to our power purchase agreement that we entered into 2 years ago, some of the benefits that were gained through that power purchase agreement: more self-determination. We allowed more generation. P&M didn't allow you guys to own or control any generation. Significant savings that you guys have seen. Our power purchase price was well below, and we've continued to be able to lower it and look to lower it in the future as well, as we see power prices in the wholesale market staying pretty soft going out 10 or 15 years. The price stability, we gave you a fixed price for the entire term of the contract, where P&M, or most power providers for that matter, typically pass on fuel costs, so you won't necessarily be able to have that fixed cost, which helps with your city planning and budgeting. And then, the access to the cheapest energy mix available. That's kind of what I want to talk about most with you, and something that Ken George and I have been doing since last July is we've been selling, instead of buying additional Western replacement power from WAPA, which we gave you the option to do, what we propose to do, and what Ken George and I have been working on, is instead of buying it from WAPA, if we can go out to the market and for any particular month buy it for less, we'll buy it for less on your behalf and sell it to you. And so far, since last July, we estimate that the city has saved about $13,000 almost by doing this. And so it's just another way that we've kind of continued to think outside the box and how we can help these small communities save, because that's where we specialize. We specialize, if you look at our loads, they are small communities, rural communities, and that's really where we like to focus. And so, working together towards what's next? Well, we're looking at battery storage, even for small Aztec. Maybe it makes sense. Probably not this year, maybe not next year, but playing in the ancillary services markets, monetizing your solar energy RECs. Your solar produces renewable energy credits. They are worth something, and we're going to help you sell them, and at no cost to you. We'll just help you do that. And eventually, you'll have a little bit of money there. And then low-cost wind power. We're committed to continually bringing in the lowest cost power that we can to keep your rates as low as possible. And so I know these city council meetings can get long, so I kept it short. If any of you ever have any questions, feel free to contact me. I'll give you my contact information after this. And if you're ever up in Denver, come by the office. We'd love to have you over. Any questions?
Thank you.
Anybody?
No, sir.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Our next item on our agenda is our citizen recognition. I think we've got a few folks here tonight.
Yes,
Mr.
sir,
Mueller?
Mr. Mayor, I do. We have the state championship Aztec High School shotgun team here with us tonight, or a good majority of them. And I'm going to turn it over to Coach Rory Evanson to make introductions, and we'll go from there.
Thank you.
So, like he said, I'm the head coach. My mom is she does all the paperwork, all the stuff. I just show up, teach kids how to
Good job,
shoot.
Misty.
And a good chunk of our shooters are here. A lot of them couldn't make it for other obligations they had. And I guess I'll just let them introduce themselves, if that'll work with you guys.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Absolutely.
You just want to start, Garrett?
I'm Garrett Dickens. Oh, that's it? Oh, I'm Chris Chisholm. Adler Smith. You guys can tell them how long you've been shooting. Oh, well, I don't know.
Yeah, start over. Garrett, what grade? Yeah, maybe give us like what grade you are and how many years you've been on the team or something like that.
I've been on the team for 2 years. 2 years, yeah, this is my second year. I'm a junior in high school.
Awesome.
I'm Chris Chisholm. I'm a junior. I've been on the team for 2 years. I'm Adler Smith. I've been on the team for 2 years, and I'm a sophomore in high school. My name is Barry Smith. I've been on the team for 1 year, and I'm a new grader.
I'm Marie Foster. I've only been on the team for a couple months, and I'm in engagement. I'm Wickham Shaw. I've been on the team for 1 year, and
I'm Caden Baldwin. This is my first year on the team. Walt Meyer. I've been on the team for 1 year, and I've been team for 2 years. I'm Rowan McCartney. I've been on the team for 3 years.
Very cool. All right.
That's
Yeah.
all. I know she wants to talk. So our high schoolers, I know, did you notice some were high school and some were junior
Right.
high grade? Both of them took champion in their division as a team, and our junior high kids actually took second in the high school division, beat all the other state high schools.
Wow.
Wow.
And our
That's awesome. So we should be dominating for like 4 or 5 more years at least.
At least
should be.
At least, yeah.
No question.
It's like the dream team of shotgun.
And our junior girl actually outshot all the high school girls at state.
Wow.
Congratulations.
Awesome.
Like you said, I'm Misty Evanson. I did want to brag on them a little bit, tell you a little bit about our program. The kids are, right now, they're all from Aztec. We do accept kids from other towns as long as their school doesn't have a team. We would like to see Farmington, Bloomfield rise to our challenge and have a team also. But until then, we'd welcome them on our team. Like you said, we have junior high, high school. They're dominating, doing well. Our season, we start in September and go till the end of April. The kids travel and go to about 4 competitions out of town, and then the state tournament. They competed this year against 68 kids, and so it's really great to see this program grow, and love the support that you guys have gave us, especially this year. It's been very hard. A lot of people want to discourage our sport, and I'm proud of these kids. And just to my biggest pride, you know, they have great stats. They're kicking butt, but to have other coaches and people come to us on the range and tell us what good people they are makes us more proud than anything. And want to encourage them to keep being the good citizens that they are. And thank you guys for having us.
Thank you for coming.
They need a
Thank you
standing
very much.
ovation. Good job, guys.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Hey, this is the fun part. Where are you guys going?
We're gonna go practice.
Okay. All right. Well, we got the diehards here anyway. So is there any further citizen recognition? Mr. Mueller?
No, sir.
Anything? Okay. All right. Our next item is employee recognition.
Man, at this time, it's hard to top that state championship.
It is hard to
It
top
is.
that.
I
Yeah.
would like to say something if I could, Mr.
Of
Mayor.
course.
I'd just like to recognize Chief Hill and all the work that he's doing. I visited with him last week, I think it was, about all the things that he's doing and working and the trips he's making down to Santa Fe, talking to legislators and talking before committees, and doing, trying to do all he can to help us protect our kids and to make our schools safer. And I just wanted to recognize him for all the extra work that he's putting in with that effort on several different things that he's working on, trying to make that happen. So I just wanted to give him kudos for that. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, I've got a couple of things. One, and it was kind of impromptu. I was talking to Delane a few minutes ago, but I had the pleasure, well, I don't know if pleasure is maybe a strong word. I went to the DMV today. I had to take care of some DMV business. My tag was expired on my van, and you know, it's always a wait. You know, it's never a perfect world where you go right in and it's empty. You know, there's always 15 people sitting there. But I just want to give a little tip of the hat to the employees of the DMV, because I know one of them is in training. They were short-staffed. They only had 2 folks there. They were doing driver's tests, registrations, so on and so forth. And, you know, it always sucks to have to wait, but once you get up there, the professionalism, they're so calm, you know. I mean, there's people continuously, you can hear them griping and grouching, and, you know, nobody likes to be forced to wait for anything. But I just wanted to say thank you, and I know their department head is here tonight, and just if you would pass that on, please. I had a great experience. They were very, very gracious to everybody that I saw, so I just want to kind of give them a little shout out. And we have a new compliance officer as well. Is that right? Mr. Saavedra? It's not official yet?
Getting closer, though.
Okay. Next meeting, we'll do that. Okay. I guess if we don't have any other employee recognition, we will go on to the consent agenda. Items placed on the consent agenda will be voted on with one motion. If any item proposed does not meet the approval of all commissioners, a commissioner may request that the item be heard under items from consent agenda. Hearing none, I will ask for a motion.
Mayor, move to approve this evening's consent agenda as given.
Second.
Second. We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay. Next item is citizens' input. Citizens who wish to speak will sign up prior to the meeting, and this is for items otherwise not listed on this evening's agenda. You have up to 3 minutes to speak. And it is empty, so we can just continue on. All right. The next item is item 14, our land use hearings. Zone change from O1 Office and Institutional District to C1 Limited Retail Neighborhood Commercial District. Do we have the list of folks? Am I good to go ahead and start with the, okay. All right. I have to read a little paragraph for every land use hearing, so just bear with me, please. The following hearing procedure is for all hearings on tonight's agenda. A land use hearing registration form is located at the clerk's table. For those who wish to receive a copy of the results from this hearing, you must provide your full name and current mailing address in order to receive a copy of the land use hearing order. If you wish to testify and provide comment on the matter at issue, you must register with the clerk on the land use hearing registration form and be sworn in with staff, the applicant, identified parties, witnesses, and interested persons. Interested persons identified by the parties and/or interested persons wishing to testify as indicated on the land use hearing registration form. Okay, so we're going to move into the land use hearing part of the meeting. Is there a challenge to the jurisdiction of the City of Aztec Commissioners to hear any of the hearings on tonight's agenda? See none. Are there any conflicts of interest or personal biases to be declared by a commission member?
No.
No. Okay. Have there been any ex parte contacts regarding the upcoming matters that a commission member needs to declare? If so, please state the ex parte contacts at this time.
No.
No? None? Okay. Will staff, the applicant or applicants, parties identified by commission, all witnesses, and any interested persons wishing to testify regarding zone change ZC 18-02, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth under penalty of perjury? Okay, please be seated. Okay, so Mr. Saavedra, summarize the staff report to the extent necessary, or whomever is. Sure.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City
Good evening.
Commission. Zone change 18-02 is a request from Rodney Fost to zone change from the current O1 zoning district to C1 neighborhood commercial zoning district. Just to give you an idea of where it's located. It's right there. Subject properties are located at 118 East Chaco, 120 East Chaco, and 101 South Church Avenue. So it is these buildings right here, these two buildings, and then this parking lot. in totality, this is the request for the zone change. In totality, it is 0.39 acres, and the building is 4,445 square feet. As you can see in the zoning map, subject property is O1. Surrounding areas are also O1. And right here, abutting Main Street is C1, including right here, which is the Aztec hub. Now, the O1 district allows for offices, allows for institutions. Right here is a church. It also allows for residential. So many of the uses in this area are residential. This is a church. This is office space right here. And these are 2 residential units, commercial and commercial along the Main Street corridor. Mr. Rodney Foss has requested the zone change specifically to allow for the sale of boats, the storage and retail sale of boats, as seen right here. You can locate a dealer right now from Paddle Kings, and it will tell you where to go. 118 East Chaco. Sorry about that. And this is just to give you an idea of what was the image, street view of the structure before Mr. Rodney Foss bought it. Now, this is an older image as of 2012 from Google, to give you an idea of what it looks like. And this is to give you an idea of what it looks like right now. Now, in February, Community Development sent a letter to Mr. Rodney Foss letting him know that the sale of retail boats and storage was not allowed. Now, this was back in February. Hence, March, April, Mr. Rodney Foss continued forward to store the boats in the subject property. At the time, we let him know that he has, well, 3 options. One is to request a zone change. The other is to request a conditional use permit or to remove the boats. Now, within every zone change, we look at an analysis. Is the requested use compatible with the surrounding areas? Is there going to be potential adverse impacts? Does the comprehensive plan call for it? And is it a spot zone? In that analysis, we outlined in your staff report, Community Development felt that the requested zone change was not appropriate, and therefore we're requesting denial, or recommending denial. And I will stand for questions.
So I just want to make sure I understand, and I guess when Mr. Foss comes up, I can ask him as well. I guess maybe some of these are more appropriate for him. But regarding the letter you sent, which I saw a copy of it because you provided it, February 13th is when it was dated, and so just in layman's terms, did you essentially say, "Hey, Mr. Foss, you can't do this.
Yeah. So
it's not set up at this current time to use this property for the means in which you want to use it for." Was there any inventory already in there, or?
So to go back a few months, to give you a fuller picture of the ideas, Mr. Foss had indicated that he wanted to do a few ideas with the subject property. One of them was a retail sale of boats. He had called and asked if I could put in a dog grooming institution there. There had been mention of an eatery at some point. With the dog grooming place and the boats, we let them know that the zoning doesn't allow for that. So before the boats were there, the letter went out, because that was just to preempt to say, hey, you can't do it. These are the rules. If you're going to do it, and you've seen the letter, we provided an attachment for the conditional use application and so forth. So that was to say, hey, if you want to continue forward, apply. We'll work with you in the process so that you're not in violation. Now, one thing that I did not provide to you is that we did receive a few inquiries, some objections. This is a letter from one of the neighbors.
Is that the one from Mr. Banry?
From Aaron.
Yeah, Aaron Banry. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but
Banry.
yeah, I've got it here.
I hope I answered your question correct. Was
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Were there any other, and I guess I could look through real quick, was there any other, and I read this today as well, this letter from Mr. Banry. So, I'm sorry, I'm trying to, pull up the, there's something else I need to look at regarding this. In the meantime, while I'm doing that, is there anybody that has any questions they'd like to pose to Mr. Saavedra?
Well, I don't know if I should have done this during the thing. I did receive a phone call from Bryant Bannery, which is a brother to Aaron, today, just saying that he was opposed to the zone change. I mean, we didn't get into any details. He just told me he was opposed to it.
now, so that you're aware, Aaron and Brian are considered effective parties because they're within 100 feet of the requested zone change.
Oh, that's where they're, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was trying to picture that in my head
Two houses.
when I was reading the letter. So they're the ones that are sandwiched in between the hub.
Correct. Yeah,
And
they're.
the old
this
Wells
picture
Fargo.
will highlight where they're at.
Yeah.
So. Just passed it. Apologize.
So that blue
This one right
and then
here,
the one
and then there's another house
adjacent,
right there.
right?
Mr. Mayor, I also received a call from Mr. Bannery this afternoon objecting to it.
Okay. I did not. And I'm scrolling through some of this stuff to see like the additional.
Mr.
So
Mayor?
forgive me. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question for Stephen. So, on the zone change, say, if we did the zone change, if I understand everything correctly, then there are other businesses that might not be so conducive that would be allowed in that building that might not be so conducive to the area. But am I understanding correctly that Mr. Foss could come back and request a special use permit, which would be specific to the boats?
Correct.
Is that
Right.
correct?
That's a possibility. Yes, he would have to come back in front of
Which-
the commission, and that was mentioned to Mr. Foss.
Okay.
And now at the time, and he can speak to that as well, is that he had asked, if I request a conditional use permit, do I have to go in front of the city commission? I said, yes, you do. We have to notice. You have to go in front. We have to present. He said, well, if that's the case, then I might as well go with the zone change.
But the special use permit would limit
Right.
specifically to
And-
that one business, and there would not be able
It
to
doesn't-
be like
yeah,
a
it doesn't
dog
carry over.
groomer or
Right.
anything like that, so it wouldn't carry over.
Right.
I just want to make sure that that's clear to everyone.
Yeah, and so when we look at a zone change, we do have to scrutinize it because it's not just the specific use that could go in there right now. It's the future uses that could also go in there. So it could be anything from a restaurant to a bar. Now, it is within 300 feet of a church, so a waiver would be needed, but nevertheless, it could still happen. There can be a service station, salon. So then when we have to consider if that use is appropriate for this area, and then we also have to consider surrounding uses. So there is residential within the area. Now, I understand the Banneries and some others have been opposed to the recent change, commercial change for the hub, because there's some negative externalities that have arisen, loud noise, traffic, and so forth. So we have to take that in consideration. Do we, did that set the precedent and we got to continue going forward with that, or do we look at, issues where it didn't work and we adjust and we make changes appropriately? And so that was part of the reasoning of the denial of the zone change.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions, Mr. Saavedra, at this time? Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Thrower, do we have the option to circle back around if there's something that comes up that we want to Okay.
Yes, you do.
So, Mr. Foss, I think you also have an opportunity to question Mr. Saavedra at this time. Is that an accurate statement?
Yes.
Okay. So, Mr. Foss? So the next is for the applicant, which would be Mr. Foss and any witnesses or parties to also kind of state your case, I guess, and or ask Mr. Saavedra any questions, kind of cross-examine him. Welcome.
Commissioner, Mayor, thanks for listening to me. I'm not a great speaker, so I just hit it.
It's okay. We'll work through
Can
it.
I see a copy of the letter you referred to that I supposedly got, that I never got? Am I privy to that? Yes.
I imagine so, yeah. I don't have a copy of it. I've got it on my... Are you talking about the one directly to you, Mr. Foss?
First I've heard of it, so yes.
Okay.
I guess what I'm having a hard time with,
That's a different one.
I have personally talked to Mr. Saavedra at
I'm
least
happy to let you check this out.
3 times in person, and there was never any mention of a letter until tonight.
Are you
Totally
talking about
blank
Mr.
here.
Bannery's letter or a different one?
Well, in February.
Excuse me.
Okay. No, I've never seen it, so I just.
Sorry.
Okay, I brought some stuff I'd like to pass amongst you if I could really quick.
Sure.
This is the product I'd like to put in there. I'm sure you've been down and looked. I also read Mr. Saavedra's report, which, believe it or not, I got today in the mail several times. There's a lot I don't understand. So if I've got a few minutes, what I'd like to do is kind of tell you where I'm coming from and then address some of this.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I bought the original building on the corner approximately 5 years ago from Steve Mercy and Karen Townsend. I own Just Us Kids Preschools, and I got a large grant for Free New Mexico Pre-K, and part of that grant was I need to have a outside location as a business office for the funding and the running of the 3 child cares that I have. So I bought that from Steve. After I purchased the building, it was brought to my attention that my electric, my sewer, and my gas run across the bank's property. The sewer line runs up through the Teller drive up. The gas line runs up and over the building. And the electric comes off of the alley across the building and attaches to the building that I purchased. Well, shortly after I bought it, the bank came available. So I purchased the bank kind of as a CYA for my utilities, because I did seek counsel with Steve, and if they sold the bank to somebody other than myself, I could have utility issues. Steve's recommendation was let them sell it and I'll just sue them, because it's been there for X amount of years, forever. I don't know how long that they've been there. Well, it was more advantageous to me to purchase the bank. The building on the corner, I don't know if you've drove by, has 0 parking. Now that I've purchased the bank, I control the parking out back. According to my daughter, who's county clerk, I can do an amendment to the property and give myself parking for life without having to go through zoning, and I've talked to Steve about it, without having to go through zoning and everything. I closed the parking lot off
because my neighbor to the south of me, which I believe is the brother to the letter you got, and I talked. I personally got tired of the beer cans, diapers, and everything else that was being left in that parking lot from the 2 local bars. So I closed it off. In Mr. Saavedra's deal here, he says I need 15 parking spots, kind of alluding to that I don't have them. I do have them, but I control them. And at this point, I was trying to clean the community up and get rid of the bar people, to be quite honest with you. It was getting pretty bad. And I'm sure I can ask Steve if he would verify that my neighbor was happy that I did that, and I'm sure Steve's going to say he is.
Okay.
Okay. So I was trying to do the area kind of a service. So then I decided I bought a bank. I may as well do something with it. It's a nice location. It's got a beautiful showroom. I was approached from a company in Farmington about putting dogs in there, which I talked to Steve about. He says no way, so I dropped it. If you've been in the bank is really set up for a displays, sales. I talked to Steve today about I can't put a Verizon store in there based on the way that it's zoned. I can't put the little soap store that's on Main Street. If she wanted to come around on the side, I can't put that in there because of the way that it's zoned. So what I decided to do once I saw the boats, they've opened up Farmington Lake, they've opened up the new lake in Durango, the marina out here. The gentleman came out and has spent millions of dollars revamping the marina and making it to where people are now coming in from Albuquerque, they're coming in from all over for the marina. And what I wanted to do was specialize in something small so that I could do this area. And I thought, well, I'd do it in the bank there. So I ordered the boats. The boats got built sooner than I had anticipated, and I was asked to come and get them. So that's how they ended up at the bank earlier than they normally would have. My intentions with the property, I'd like to put in the bank itself. I'd like to put in a store where you can buy life jackets, canoes, boat paraphernalia, ski ropes, that kind of stuff because of the area that's here. It's starting to become a nice boating area. It has been a boating area for years. Now that we have a nice marina, I just think it's going to grow. I wanted a business that was seasonal. It's only going to run from normally April through September. It's not going to be 12 months because you don't boat for 12 months. In Mr. Saavedra's documentation, he was concerned about semis. I don't know where this came from, tearing up the streets. I'm sure Steve has seen that park. I bought a trailer and a truck to haul my product. The trailer weighs no more than a motorhome. The trailer with boats loaded on it is no heavier than Aztec High School football bus. The boats weigh 800 pounds apiece. Less than 24,000 pounds on the trailer, including the trailer. There's no weight there. Cisco and Benny Keith deliver food around there to Rubio's. They're running semis around there. They're doing more damage than I'm going to do with that little trailer. So what I'm asking basically is to get it rezoned. And I did tell Steve I'd like to just get it rezoned and be done with it. I've been to his office 3 times. And I'm on the same page as you guys. I don't want a bar in there. We've got enough problems on the other corner, let alone mine. And I mentioned to him what I personally think needs to happen. The commission should take upon itself, change the code, and take the bars out of C1. And make that a special use permit so that anybody on Main Street can come in. You can rezone C1 anywhere in Aztec if you choose. If they want a bar, it has to come back here and you can deny it. Otherwise, an individual like myself that's been here for 35 years is being hindered on a rezoning because maybe a bar will go in there. I don't want a bar in there. And I've even mentioned to Steve, I'll sign something, put it in the deed, you can do restrictions on the property. Where you go back to the county and you put in there, bar exempt. I mean, I'm not a problem doing that. I'm not a bar person. And if that is going to stop me from getting zoned, I just have a problem with that. Traffic, you have more school traffic and bus traffic than you're ever going to have with my boats. When the bank was there, you had more traffic than you're going to have with people wanting to buy boats. I don't understand the traffic that he was talking about in here. Other than that, ask me a question and I'll try my best to answer it.
Okay. And I don't mean to sound, I don't know. I don't know how exactly I should word this question. So, from an outsider, and I guess I would be considered an outsider's perspective because I'm not you and I'm not the city staff that has been dealing with this land use item. We had a saying in the military that it's better to beg for forgiveness than ask permission. And that's kind of how it appears from my perspective, as if you kind of had a feeling, and please, I'm just, if I'm off base, please, correct me, but it feels as if it's one of those things, well, I'm going to take my chances kind of thing. And it wasn't set up for that. It wasn't approved for that, and permission wasn't granted to, to have the boats there. And for whatever reason, and I'm not saying it's your fault per se, because production, et cetera, and you kind of got left in a position, according to your testimony, that you were forced to do something with them. And then you're like, well, I'm just going to put them here, and, and then after the fact, kind of appeal to the commission for the zone change.
Well, that's not really the case, because Steve can verify this. When all this started, some of you weren't on the commission yet. And it was recommended that I call you and talk to you individually before you were elected to the commission. And at that point, I chose not to, because at that point, you're still canvassing, you're still trying to get elected. I don't know you, I don't know whether you know what's going on in the city or not. So at that point, I chose not to do that. So I held off for about a month, and I came back in after you had been seated, installed, and get a ground feeling on how the city's run, and then I came back and did that. And like I say, you can ask Steve, and he'll tell you that's what happened. I guess from your perspective, I can see where you can see that, yes. On my side, like I said, I have talked to Steve. I have talked to Bob before he left several times. And you can ask Steve, Reggie's sitting right here. I was never told once that those boats had to be moved. I never saw that letter. If I would have saw the letter, I'd have been right down here and talked to Steve specifically about that letter. So for that, I'm sorry. I can't do this if it helps. I would rather personally have the property rezoned, because I'm not going to be around forever. And down the road, somebody else is going to do something with it, which is a fear with Steve and your side. I can put covenances on the property, being the legal owner, that there will never be a bar at that location. Register that with San Juan County that can be attached to the title and the deed. So that will stop that issue, if that helps. I'm not opposed to that. When I first moved here 35 years ago, I was one of the biggest attendants of the Red Garter out here. And I learned my lesson. I don't want to get involved with it. I don't want to be involved with it. So, I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I personally would like to get it zoned correctly so that down the road, my kids who are going to own this property are not tied or hand-tied. Steve was involved. I tried to buy the old Maverick out here at the end of town. They have covenants on there. You can't sell any oil products. You can't install oil products. There's a list a half a mile long. I cannot put an air conditioning shop in there because I'm installing air conditioning oil. And it's in their covenants. So I don't know what they're going to do with it except maybe a car lot like in Farmington. But if there's an option that I can list this property, if I can change it to the C1 and go over there and have them put on there that it will not be a bar, I don't have a problem with that. If that's not a deal breaker, does that make sense?
It does make sense.
I mean, and that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I appreciate the idea of let's let him have the votes there, okay? But that really doesn't help with my neighbor who doesn't want them. Okay, I'm just being honest with you. And I could be there 10 years, they can go away, and then my kids with this bank are probably going to be back in here wanting to try and rezone it 10, 15 years, years from now. So I don't know if that helps.
Somewhat. I mean, yeah, it does. Yeah, I understand where you're coming from as far as your point, right? Who else?
Mr. Mayor, just for the record, if Mr. Foss were to put a deed restriction on the property, he could at any time remove the deed restriction. So that's not a viable alternative.
Okay. So just as much as
I'm not going to debate with you, Rod. I'm just giving the
owner,
mayor.
just as so.
You can put a deed restriction. No, you can take the deed restriction back off.
So just, for example, Maverick could also do the same thing if they wanted to kind of put it into context for my purpose. They might say tomorrow, oh, by the way,
can be
if you want
placed and removed at the owner's behest.
Okay. So, and these are my biggest trepidations and I don't know if it was the best thing or the worst thing going to that zoning conference, because I have learned that the unintended consequences are often the ones that we kind of get bit by 10, 15, 20 years, which is to not suggest that they would be coming from your point of view or from you individually. It's that, I've got kids, and my kids, I cannot guarantee that they're going to follow my wishes. I'm learning that as they get older. We hope that they do, and we have a pretty good feeling that they're going to carry out, the family business, as it were, so to speak, in your vision. But times change, products change, technologies change, and, they might just be or they might sell it to somebody else. And once a zoning change is done, it's done. And you can't kind of put the toothpaste back in the tube sort of thing. And if it passes hands 2 or 3 times, 25 years from now, some of the folks that have kids and grandkids out here are going to be the ones that live with whatever gets installed there. And that's my big concern. Additionally, my concern is that, like I kind of stated from the outset, it just seems like we're going to roll the dice on this one and hope that we get what we want, because it's kind of like, well, I already took a bite of the cookie, so you're going to make me throw it away kind of thing. And that's kind of what my initial concern was as well. So I would ask if anybody else has any questions of Mr. Foss or statements. Or yes, ma'am.
Yes, I wanted to understand more the option for the conditional that Commissioner Sype mentioned as to
a special use permit.
Special use.
Is it special use or conditional use? Conditional use permit. Would you mind, Mr. Saavedra?
So, a conditional use permit is something like we just went through
over a month ago where we had.
With the RV, or no, with
Variants, we had the alcohol brewery, which wasn't in the code.
yeah, yes, okay.
This one isn't specific, it's not listed. Boat sales is not in the C1 district, it's not in the C2 district. So we don't have any specific definition in there. So the default is always you take it through the process, the land use hearing, and you basically state that this is going to be the one and only use, the retail sales and storage of boats that's going to happen at this time. And whenever this use ceases, it reverts back to the 01.
To the original zoning.
Now, Mr. Foss could sell the boats or the business to somebody else that's going to sell boats, and that use would continue on. But the minute he tries to change it to, let's say, RVs, that goes away, and it reverts back to the 01. But we would go through a lot of the same processes. Is this conditional use potentially detrimental to the community? So we would have to look at, the traffic impact. We're just
And that's kind of a question I have too, and I would entertain your input and that of the commissioners. Is we just went through an MRA presentation, and I have my own opinions, and I'm curious to know what you others and Mr. Saavedra, could kind of weigh in on. Is that in the spirit of what this MRA designation is where we're trying to steer the downtown area? And I don't know if anybody has any thoughts or input on that, as far as do they feel like this is kind of in the spirit of that, so to speak, or of what we want to see 5 years down the road, for example. Anybody?
Mayor, I'll say I think it's awesome to get boats in town somewhere, a business in town. I mean, that part of it, as far as referring to the, what we want to see downtown. As far as the traffic goes, I kind of agree with Mr. Foss's, bus traffic going through there specific to his trailer with the weights and things. I'm not concerned about the asphalt or anything that's mentioned in the staff summary, but like you said, it just kind of depends on what we want the future of that whole area to look like. Regardless of whether or not it'd be cool to have boats and water sports and a store in town somewhere, it'd be great, but I'm not sure about this location.
And I'm kind of the same. Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump in. I was kind of the same way, though. It's not that I have an issue with somebody selling boats in Aztec. That's not maybe where I don't want anybody to, at least on the commission, from our point of view, I don't want you to walk away from this thinking that I'm anti, small business or anti-boat shop. I don't own a boat. I have no plans to own a boat, but, whatever. I think it's great for the area. I'm not convinced that this location is the best place for it. And additionally, and again, with the unintended circumstances that I'm thinking of, suppose it gets put in. We change the zoning, just hypothetically, and everybody buys a boat. Everybody in Aztec buys a boat. He's perhaps, going to expand product lines or need additional transportation. And again, it may never happen. It might just be this little corner boat shop, and people buy the little mini pontoon boats. Is that what they kind of are, little mini pontoons? And we're just trucking along, but it could, the unintended circumstances is continually what kind of is the refrain playing in the back of my brain anytime we look at doing a zoning change. And that's kind of my big concern, is that this is not intended for that use. And those are the questions that I have.
I too am in great support of any new business, and particularly something related to the water sports and so forth here. It does seem that this is an odd place and not necessarily fitting the downtown area. And I would so wish this could be in another location. Because I think it could be a real benefit to the region.
So, could I just, you asked about the MRA.
Yes, sir.
For those who weren't there, the MRA did recommend more commercial income. So, just so that you're aware, this is asking for approval. Now, keep in mind, the MRA had just a recommendation. It's not been adopted. But then we also have to consider where exactly commercial is supposed to be at. And so this is what the staff report outlined, is that typically boat sales are on major thoroughfares. I think that goes without saying. And they're not in pockets of neighborhoods. And so that's where we look at, is this the ideal location? Staff feels that it's not, because when we look at traffic, now, I just had to look at the brochure, so this is part of the cross-examination. There's a semi-trailer here on the brochure. So would that increase, would that, if this boss is doing well, would he need more boats? Yes. Would this need to go in there? Probably so. Would that impact asphalt? Absolutely. That also impacts visual clearance. You have a large truck, are you going to be parked in the alley or on Church Street? Or what other street are you going to park at to deliver this distribution service? Maybe the parking lot. But I haven't heard that, and that's what, when we look at zone changes, we look at potential impacts that could surround the area. So how do you mitigate that? That makes it a little easier to swallow, is that if you can start outlining, okay, well, if there's going to be noise, we'll put up a brick wall, so that will reduce the noise that's coming through for whatever business it is. If there's going to be large traffic, you do some traffic measures that reduces that potential negative externality. I didn't hear that. I haven't heard that in the time talking to Mr. Floss. So that's where I just have to assume if it's not mentioned, then it's not going to happen. And so that's part of the analysis.
And Mr. Mayor, if I may, for those of you that haven't been on the commission for a long time, I'm normally not very impressed with precedents and setting precedents. But in this particular case, I think the commission needs to be careful in encouraging citizens purchasing real estate that has one zoning and betting on the come that they'll be able to get it rezoned to suit their purpose.
I think that kind of puts it, you worded it better. That's what I was thinking. I guess I wasn't able to verbalize it very well.
Because then the next zoning change that you've got, then Mr. Thompson's going to come in and say, well, wait a minute, you did it for Mr. Foss.
Right.
Why won't you do it for me?
Right.
And that, I think the commission needs, as I said, to be somewhat careful in setting that kind of a precedent of encouraging the purchasing of zoned property and betting on the come that it can be rezoned to suit the particular purpose of the purchaser.
Can I comment?
And if I could, go ahead.
No,
Mr. Foss.
I think my comment maybe wait till the discussion part or whatever.
Okay. But I do have another question regarding parking, Mr. Foss. Just for everybody's personal, just for context and for kind of to frame it a little bit, because I'm looking at one of the pictures where there's boats in the lot, which I imagine that's going to be the primary storage place for the boats, hypothetically, if this were to move forward. Is that a fair statement?
Okay.
Where will you store your inventory?
If we can do something to where I can put these boats there. My intentions are to put them on racks like in Lowe's.
Right.
So basically racks where you can put 3 or 4 on top of each other and then move them with a forklift.
Okay.
They're the size of a Volkswagen. I mean, they're not huge.
No, I'm just, my only question is.
At least half of my parking lot.
Okay. That answers my question.
Is going to be parking.
So you would.
So I did pull, 60 days ago, a fence permit or something?
It was longer than that. So
I've already addressed fencing it.
Right. Okay.
well, not exactly. So it has fencing for C1 of storage has to be completely screened. So that would be block walls or some type of line fence.
This is what I asked Steve this morning. If I'm going to have a sales lot, why would it be considered storage? And Elena contacted me about, I'm not licensed. I can't be licensed until I have a zoning letter from the city that I'm being registered in to get a license to be legal selling cars, boats, whatever in New Mexico. And until I get rezoned and I get a letter stating that, I can't apply for a license. So I'm in a catch-22.
You're not the only one, it looks like.
So anyway, All right, let me ask this. Special use permit. Can there be a time limit?
For how long it's
Yeah.
good for?
Yeah, it seems, okay.
Well, it would be a
seems-
conditional use permit, and from what I understand, and please correct me, Mr. Saavedra, it goes with, so if you own if you put a coffee shop someplace, and it's in a residential neighborhood, and you want to open up a coffee shop, you know, maybe it was an old church or something, and you open a coffee shop, it wasn't zoned for that, but you get a conditional use permit, and you meet all the other requirements, that will go with that. But if you sell the building, say you sell the church to me, and I want to turn it into a daycare or a church camp or something, then I can't take your conditional use permit and use it to serve coffee, unless I would have to reapply
Right.
as the new owner.
Okay.
So
Yes.
the time limit, if I'm answering, I don't know if that answers your question, it goes with you as long as you own the business,
Yeah, okay, well, I guess where I was
uninterrupted.
at, I have my property for sale. Okay. Can I get a conditional use permit for 36 months? And if, reason for this, I'm just talking here, that lets you know what I'm doing, lets me know if I'm gonna grow. If I sell my location and I'm doing well with my boats, I'm going out on the highway somewhere. Right now, I own a location, I'm paying a mortgage payment, heat, lights, and electric. It's not to my advantage to be on a arterial throughway, 550. Does that make sense? Because then all I'm doing is encumbering more expenses. I don't know if that helps.
Mr. Mayor, point of order, the commission can't give advisory opinions about what it might or might not do on a conditional use permit, because the conditional use permit is not before the commission this evening. The zoning change is. So we don't give advisory opinions about what we might or might not do on another application were it to be filed.
And I wouldn't be the subject matter expert, even if I could. Yeah, so thank you, Mr. Thrower.
So you can't convert, I guess maybe I misunderstood Steve, but if the zoning change tonight is, let's say, denied, then I have to go back through another 30 or 45 days of conditional use permit?
That's correct.
Correct.
If the zoning change is denied, then you have the option of filing an application for a conditional use permit, and you'd have to go through the procedures for the conditional use permit, whatever those time frames were, and that would come before the commission at a later meeting.
Okay. Any other questions of either Mr. Foss, Mr. Saavedra? I think they're the only two that have been involved as far as involved parties. Any other questions? If not, we're going to close the hearing to all testimony. So I don't see anybody jumping, so I'm going to close the hearing to all testimony and open up. Commissioner Sipe, you said perhaps your comment was better suited for us, our discussion, so I guess we'll open that part up right now.
Okay. Couple of things. I don't think that the zoning change right now is a good idea. I think it just opens up too much what ifs. And I guess I can't say how I would feel one way or the other on, but I would say if Mr. Foss wants to pursue this, maybe a conditional use permit might be more conducive to the area, even though it may be a good start for him, you know, and then if it grows, then maybe go out on the highway or whatever. I feel like that there's a lot of cart before the horse here. You know, the business permit. There's some things that should have been checked into, I think, before we got to the point of purchasing the boats, which is not my concern. But my concern is, I just do not, personally, I do not feel that right now the zoning change is a good idea for the city. I think if Mr. Foss wants to come back with a conditional use, then we could entertain that and lay down whatever foundation that we need to lay down at that time. That's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody have anything they'd like to discuss amongst us? I mean, I just want to kind of echo what Commissioner Shipe said, honestly. And it does, and I don't know if this could be maybe used as a cautionary tale to, I've never owned a small business. I wouldn't know where to start. I'm not making pointed criticisms about anybody. I encourage anybody that, has the wherewithal to try and start a business to go for it. We have tools available, but those are some of the things that, you have to be aware of, is to kind of be able to get some of your preliminary stuff handled prior to. And it seems like it's a lot of, well, I have to have this to get that, and then I have to have that to get this, but we already have this as far as a parking lot full of boats. And it's just one of those things where regardless of whether it was circumstance, inadvertent, mistakes, whatever the case is, it just looks like it's been mishandled almost from the beginning. And that's just my opinion based on what I've heard tonight and what I read in the staff summary and, the research looking through the agenda, and then some of the questions and answers that we got tonight. So, does anybody else have anything they would like to add or ask or discuss? Anybody? Okay. Well, I think we're ready for a motion.
Do we need to make the motion? I know we usually try to make the motion in the affirmative and then, but I don't know, maybe we should just, maybe in this case it'd be easier just to read it like it is.
Well, the way this recommended motion is drafted is in the negative.
I know.
Move to deny. You could.
Does it matter?
It doesn't really matter. Okay. I mean, the commission could make the motion in the affirmative,
and then
to approve, and then if that failed, then it would be denied.
Yeah, I didn't know which one.
I'm fine with doing it either
so
way.
Whoever makes the motion, make sure that we listen to the motion and it's clear. So we don't.
I think it needs to be clear that staff recommends denial.
Right. Correct.
And that's clear from the testimony.
Yes, sir.
So I'm fine with the motion being in the affirmative or in the negative.
Okay.
Okay. I am as well. So I would like to entertain a motion, just make sure it's clear which affirmative or negative.
Mayor, move to deny ZC Zone Change 18-02, a request from Rodney Foss for a zone change from O1 Office and Institutional District to C1 Limited Retail Neighborhood Commercial District located at 118 East Chaco, 120 East Chaco Street, and 101 South Church Avenue, and accept findings of fact 1 through 5.
So for the record, an aye vote is for a denial.
Correct.
Okay. I seconded it. Thank you.
Okay. So we have a motion and we have a second. Sherilyn, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Snowberg?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Fry?
Aye.
Commissioner Seitz?
Aye.
Commissioner Lewis?
Aye.
Commissioner Randall?
Aye.
Right. Get back where we... Sorry, I'm scrolling through again. Okay.
Just go to the, just go. One more.
Jeez Louise.
We'll need it anyway.
Okay. All right, our next item is for business items. Fiscal year 2019 preliminary budget submission approval. Ms. Lamb?
Ron's got a habit of doing that kind of stuff.
This item is for approval of submission of the FY19 preliminary budget. As we have discussed through a couple of workshops, if this item is approved, it would be a submission including the changes that were discussed this evening in the workshop, the reductions in the general fund as well as the drug utilities. Stand for questions. That's all I have to say.
Any questions?
No.
I think I think any questions, at least regarding the preliminary submission, were discussed at the workshop, so thank you. We have to do a motion on that?
Yep.
Okay, apologies. I would entertain a motion for business item A.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes, ma'am.
I'd like to move to approve the submittal of the fiscal year 2019 preliminary annual budget to the New Mexico Department of Finance and Local Government Division.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. I'm sorry, I don't remember if we do a roll call on this or not. No, okay. So we have a motion and a second for business item A. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Okay. Whew. Thank you. All right. Our next item is city manager, commissioner, city attorney reports. We can start with the city manager. Mr. Mueller.
One mention of the employee picnic coming up June 21st. It's going to be held out at Tiger Park. Got some events lined up, and employees have a good time that day, and y'all are more than welcome. Hope to see you there.
June 21st.
And there might even be a fishing contest.
Awesome.
Weston, I don't know, we're going to have to debate whether he can be included or not. That's all I have, sir.
All right, thank you. We can switch up the order, I guess, this week. Or Commissioner Lewis, would you like to, do you have a report for us?
Not
Sorry.
really.
Pardon?
Nothing this week.
Nothing this week,
Yeah.
okay. Commissioner Randall?
I attended what would have been the largest tax meeting yesterday. They didn't have a quorum. Only 2 of the members showed up, and so anyway, they didn't have a quorum. Meeting was canceled, so maybe we'll have another one at some point. Sherilyn's working to reschedule it, so I might have something to report on next time. And speaking of the employee picnic, I mean, the Game and Fish did come in and stock Riverside for the school event. Maybe they can come and stock Tiger for our city event. That'd be fantastic. But
Request that.
other than that, yeah, no report.
I don't know if it'll fit in the budget or not.
It's all free. It's all from the state. That's all.
See what we can do.
Thank you. All right, Mayor Pro Tem Fry?
Yes, I attended the Library Advisory Board, and the Kate Skinner, the director, has resigned, and so that was the major part of the discussion. And she let us know that she had prepared the staff and that the summer reading program would be going forward, and that she had a lot of confidence in the current staff there. She will be at the library until the end of this month, and that'll be a loss to the library. I attended San Juan Safe Communities Initiative, heard a presentation by the Farmington Mayor, Nate Duckett, concerning recreational sports and activities in the Four Corners and making our area more known for what we have to offer, and expanding recreational and sports in our communities. There was also a presentation by the Behavioral Initiative team at San Juan College. They're doing an excellent job, it seems, in identifying students who need help that might be problems in the classroom, trying to identify those with possible mental illness or issues that need to be stopped before something terrible would happen on a campus. And they invite high schools and counselors and other people to train them for this kind of support. Excellent group. And I attended the Four Corners Economic Development Board meeting. It was brief. There weren't a whole lot of people there. They just went over the finances, and I'll be attending future meetings to understand what are the options for expansion of the economy in our area. That's all.
Thank you. Commissioner Seib.
Like I mentioned, I had met with Chief Hill. I attended the FORSED's meeting on last Thursday. Sharon, I'm going to butcher her name because I never can say it, Claudicinich was there and had, actually PBS was there. They're making a documentary about the impact that closing the power plant and the coal mines, trying to show the impact that that's going to have on the immediate community and the trickle-down effect for all of our communities as well. So it was they interviewed different people and the impact that it was going to have. Of course, the town of Kirtland and Central Consolidated Schools are going to probably, and the county will take the biggest hit on that, and the impact that it's going to have on their budgets. So it was very interesting. I did not attend our EDAB meeting, our Aztec EDAB meeting that day because I went to the FORSEDs, but we did not have a quorum again for the third month in a row, which is not good, but we have a couple of interested people, if we can ever get a quorum, to appoint those people to that board so that we'll be able to conduct that business. Tomorrow I do have a appeal for Northwest New Mexico seniors that'll be here in this room that we're dealing with. I'll have to go into more of that afterwards, I guess. Aztec just had its graduation, and they had their project graduation party, which was a big success. Congratulations to all of our seniors and countywide, Aztec and countywide. I have to say that this year has been a tough year for our school with the shooting that happened in December, and I have to say that the schools did a remarkable job of recognizing the kids who they had lost. Not only Casey would have graduated this year, but also some other kids that they have lost through their class from elementary school all the way up. So they had 4 empty chairs that they placed flowers on and recognized and had a moment of silence. But I just wanted to say I think they did a great job of doing a memorial for those kids, but also not overshadowing the accomplishments of the kids that were graduating. I commend the schools. I think they did an awesome job of dealing with that. I know Mayor Snover was there too, and I think it was a good job because you don't want to take away from the kids that are graduating, but you want to remember the ones that aren't there and weren't graduating. So anyway, congratulations to all of them, and I think that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, I do have MPO. Sorry. I have MPO on Thursday also, so that's coming up.
Yeah, first off, I wanted to also congratulate all our 2018 graduates. It was a great ceremony. I'm part of the faculty, so it was cool to be down on the field and see some of these kids that you've known since they were, freshmen, sophomores, and I'm lucky enough to have some of them year in and year out, not just as a freshman English, for example. So to see the growth and the maturity from when you first got them as ninth graders to young men and women as they're crossing that stage, and just to see them light up when you hear their name called, even some of the ones that were maybe, we'll just say some of them were a little handful throughout their years, but even them, to see their face, it's like, it's just such a cool feeling, and, to see them walk across the stage and get their diploma, and, some of the tears of joy, and some of it's probably a little bit, what next kind of thing. But yeah, I want to echo that. Congratulations to all our graduates, especially in Aztec, but throughout the county. I failed to mention the Aztec Artist Studio Tour last time, and I just wanted to give a little shout out because I'm sure many of you know, but we have a pretty vibrant little underground art community around here, and I would like it to not be so underground going forward. I think that we can, kind of steal some things from some of the surrounding communities, and when I say surrounding, I mean as far as Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Durango, things like that, Taos, that use those as drivers of tourism and bringing people in. Maybe not on the scale of a Santa Fe, of course, but You know, we have our own little niche of very, very talented people in this area. I have several of their pieces hanging on my wall now after that weekend. So I had a great time. It was really cool. You know, you could bike around. They had a map out where you could see where the studios were and spend some time talking to the makers and the artists. And I just had a really good time. And I would like to encourage us to explore doing more of that in the future. But it went well. So enough on that. My Echo Board meeting is tomorrow. And last week, the city manager and myself met with Mayor Duckett and City Manager Rob Mays and Director of Communications Shauna Reeves regarding kind of their MRA sort of Main Street designation that they have downtown. And they collaborated with the folks from the Blue Zones, which is one of the reasons why I was really interested in it. Asked these guys, I bought them the book. But I had a great visit, and I know Farmington is a larger community than ours. Their resources are a little bit larger, deeper pockets, whatever you want to call it. But just some of the things, they're very, very friendly, very willing to share information. They sent us their Blue Zones collaboration, kind of the overview that the consultants gave to them. And it's just one of those things where I think all the information we can get, we can take a little bit from here and a little bit from there and make it our own and kind of form it to what is going to work best for Aztec going in the future. But I learned a lot, and I really enjoyed the back and forth and some of the initiatives that they're working on that we can also maybe look towards as we get our designation and look for getting our Main Street designation back. Two more things, I promise. I'm going to put out a date for the next Your Mayor Wants to Talk to You thing. I'm looking at maybe the 14th of June. That's not in stone yet. I'm going to check with the city clerk when she gets back and see about maybe doing that in another location besides City Hall. So if anybody knows any small businesses out there that might want to host us, you know, have a few people come out and talk and get to know the business a little bit and come through downtown and then come in, beat me up for a few hours with, well, not a few hours, a couple hours with some questions and complaints or some kudos, whatever it may be. There'll be more to follow on that. And I just want to circle back around one more time. I kind of butchered the whole Gay Pride Month, and I feel bad because I'm not, you know, I was kind of doing it on the go. And I wasn't very articulate, and we will have a proclamation for next month. But I guess the bottom line is it's important to highlight these things. It's important to acknowledge them. And I guess from my perspective as the mayor and one of 5 commissioners and as a citizen of this city, you know, what I want to get across is that we're behind you. We're with you. We're next to you. We got you. You know, we got your back sort of thing, I guess, for lack of a better way of putting it. And I just wanted to kind of come back around and try and get another swing at that one. So thank you, everybody, for coming out this evening. And Mr. Thrower, do you have a report?
No report, Mr. Mayor. I thought of something, which is never a good sign. As you know, a lot of people, I've been afoot the past couple of weeks. And people have talked about Aztec and how it's growing, how it's not growing, what's going on. If you really want to get to know the city, walk it. Don't drive around. Walk the streets, and you'll get to know a lot more about the city. I saw some shops didn't know existed because I've been driving by them and didn't realize it. All kinds of things are out there. So I recommend everybody get out and hoof it around the town and see what you can find, because there's all kinds of fun things to get into.
Okay. Department reports.
Miss Tina got skunked today. That's a department report.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just wanted to recognize a group of seniors at the center. We depend a lot on donations, and we've acquired 25 to 30 flower arrangements, gravesite floral arrangements. And so I actually asked the seniors to sign up to go and take care of some graves at the cemetery here locally. And about 15 of the seniors stepped up to do that, and I'm proud of them. That's a great number of participants in any activities that we have over there.
Absolutely.
And so I would like to extend the invitation. You can bring your own gloves. We're leaving the center at 10 o'clock a.m. Thursday morning to head up to the cemetery to clean up some of the graves that have been neglected or forgotten.
Don't have any family left in the area.
Right. So
It is a really neat thing for this community, how we come together to support one another, whether we're still living or forgotten in some way. So, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. All right. I think that's it. Thanks again, everybody. Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.